Did you know that we're on social media? You can find us at facebook.com/criminallylisted and at criminally_listed on Instagram. Make sure you follow us to stay up to date on the latest news. Number 3. Paola High School, Paola, Kansas. What would you do to get what you wanted? How far would you go? Teenager Michael Sullivan was desperate to be included and to be liked at his new high school in Paola, Kansas, to the point he would do absolutely anything to get what he wanted, including murder. Or at least, that's how this legend goes. Michael entered high school with big dreams. Like many typical 1950s boys, he was eager to make the football team and date the cheerleader and become the big man on campus. But Michael wasn't big, not at all. He tipped the scales at a mere 115 pounds. And his diminutive 5'6" frame got him turned away by the football coach. Michael suffered in silence as the cheerleaders watched him head back to the locker room, helmet in hand, utterly dejected. But as he took one last look around Wallace Park, the football field he so desperately wanted to play on, he noticed the school's marching band practicing on the sidelines. The band would also have some time in the spotlight when it came to Friday night games across Miami County. Maybe, he thought, he could join the band and at least be a small part of the action. The problem was, Michael didn't play an instrument, at least not yet. After borrowing an old trumpet from the school's music teacher, the boy set about to teach himself how to play. If anything, Michael Sullivan didn't give up easily. But when his family begged him to find someplace else to blow his horn, Michael found himself waiting in the school until long after everyone had gone home so he could practice without bothering anyone. Then, when the night custodian begged him to find someplace else to blow, Michael wasn't sure what to do, or where to go. Until he found a set of stairs hidden behind a curtain backstage at the school's auditorium. These narrow, winding steps led to a disused storage room where broken instruments, out-of-fashion band uniforms, and old play costumes went to die. It was cramped and dusty, and it was perfect for Michael's off-key trumpet blasts, because with its remote location, Michael Sullivan could practice as loud as he wanted. And boy, did he practice. The next fall, as a sophomore, Michael felt he was ready to try out for the marching band. But the music teacher told him another boy, who was much better at the trumpet, had already earned that position. Undaunted, Michael begged the teacher to at least let him join the band as a backup. And the teacher agreed. Dressed in his band uniform during the first Friday game, Michael Sullivan proudly looked up at the crowd in the bleachers and beamed. He had accomplished what he set out to do. But as halftime came and went, Michael found himself sitting alone on the bench as he watched the other boy blow solo after solo. Michael never even took his trumpet out of his case. And that, he thought, had to change. A little while later, Michael and his rival were practicing on the football field after school as the music teacher watched on. When someone's instrument broke, the teacher asked Michael's rival to find a replacement part in the old storage room above the stage. Michael volunteered too. He knew that room pretty well, and he said he could help him find the piece. But as the two boys climbed the cramped staircase of the storage room, Michael sensed he had an opportunity to make his dreams come true. When he reached the top of the stairs with the other boy behind him, Michael, in a fit of rage and jealousy, tried to push the other boy down the long stairwell below. But his plan failed. The other boy somehow steadied himself, and Michael lost his balance in his attempted murder. He fell down the stairs himself, landing on the stage below with his neck broken and his short life behind him. Everybody in the town, including the other trumpet player, thought it was simply some kind of bizarre accident. Michael Sullivan never seemed the kind of person who would want to try to hurt someone on purpose, they thought. But in the afterlife, Michael's final judge knew the truth. And perhaps that's why at Paola High School in Paola, Kansas, the ghost of Michael Sullivan is doomed to remain on Earth to this day. As local legend recounts, those working backstage on the school productions later heard bumps coming from the now sealed-off stairwell. And according to the book Haunted Kansas by Lisa Heights, people passing by the old PHS late at night have sometimes heard the ethereal sounds of a wailing trumpet, perhaps a little off-key, and never getting better. Number 2. San Manuel High School, San Manuel, Arizona. There was an air of excitement for the class of 1956. For the last 2 years, the students in the mining town of San Manuel had graduated from middle school, only to attend high school in a converted army barracks while their new high school was being built. But that changed in January of '56 when the new San Manuel High School opened its doors. Students and staff marveled at the huge and then modern facility. And the 16-year-old juniors looked forward to the fall when they would start their first full year in a real high school before graduating into the real world. Only one of those students wouldn't live to see graduation. On Friday, October 12, 1956, two 16-year-old students, Jack and James, snuck away to their car, perhaps to have a smoke away from the prying eyes of the school superintendent who was lingering outside. It wasn't long before James, who was in the back seat, saw a .22 caliber hunting rifle lying on the floor. He picked it up and aimed it out the window, using the rifle's scope to spy on a group of girls nearby. Jack, who was in the driver's seat and who owned the rifle, begged his friend to put the gun away. And soon they began wrestling over the weapon, which inevitably went off. The boys were shocked but unharmed. But 75 feet away, 17-year-old Annie Flores, who had been sitting on the school's front steps chatting with her fellow cheerleaders, went pale. Blood began to seep onto her white shirt from her stomach. According to the school's nurse, Patricia Unale, Annie was dead within seconds of being shot. Though only 17 at the time of her death, Annie had been engaged to a boy named Albert Hernandez. They had planned to get married shortly after graduation. She had even already picked out her wedding dress, the same dress in which she was buried in Holy Hope Cemetery a few days later. That's why, today, San Manuel High School is rife with countless stories of people catching glimpses of a woman in white who wanders the halls. On the website Ghost of America, a user named Jacob relayed that he once saw the ghost in the school's darkened auditorium. She was in the glass-walled projection booth, flowing back and forth between the glass. Then, before the figure completely made it across the window, two girls standing a few feet away started screaming, writes Jacob. It seems they saw Annie too. When a teacher rushed over to see what the trouble was, the students told him what they saw. A quick check of the booth door revealed it was locked, and the teacher was the only one with the key. Jacob is convinced it was Annie Flores in the booth that night. A lot of the auditorium is said to be haunted by her, he writes, and stresses that he and his friends weren't the only witnesses to Annie's ethereal presence. Other people have claims of seeing her too. Number 1. Clyde A. Erwin High School, Asheville, North Carolina. In the spring of 1883, Charlotte Snelson was sick. The cause of her illness has been lost to history, because Charlotte didn't really matter. She and her husband were beyond poor. They were transient, destitute, and desperate. So when 26-year-old Charlotte eventually died on a sunny Thursday morning in early May, her husband had no choice but to turn her body over to the state for burial in a mass grave. It was a potter's field, 1.8 acres of land in Buncombe County, designed as the resting place for the area's indigent and anonymous. But the landscape was so beautiful, a hillside peppered by mimosa trees, that the town of Asheville couldn't help at least give it a nice name, the Country Home Cemetery. Over the years, more than 1,000 people were buried in simple pine boxes alongside Charlotte in the rolling grounds at Country Home. But none of those so-called paupers, many from a nearby asylum, would be able to rest in peace. Because 90 years later, workers began to dig up the skeletons from their shallow graves. In 1973, the Clyde Erwin High School was looking to expand its campus. They wanted to build a football stadium. Unfortunately, the only available land was right next door, over top the cemetery. At the time, however, the Country Home Cemetery had fallen into disrepair. With very few headstones or markers, the dead being unable to afford them, the acreage looked more like a cow pasture than a boneyard. Still, the city of Asheville wanted to do the right thing, to exhume the bodies in the ground and replant them in another field nearby. Town councilors earmarked a certain amount of money to do the job, but as more bodies were dug up, far more than they had anticipated, the money ran out. And workers were shocked when they found out not all the remains were skeletal. We were digging on the other side of the field and struck one that was still intact, one worker told the newspaper in 1973. I mean, it really bothered me. Eventually, when the town's coffers ran dry, the reinterment project was abandoned. At least 250 bodies remained in the grounds at Country Home. But that didn't stop the high school from moving forward with its stadium plans. Today, those bodies lay a few feet below the stadium's concession stand. You can probably see where this is going. The reports of restless spirits around the school started almost immediately. The night custodians at Erwin began reporting hearing mournful whispers and smelling what they thought was rotting flesh. They would catch glimpses of people in the school long after it closed, only to have them disappear when they went to investigate. In 1988, student Chad Nesbitt set about to film a fundraising video for the school. At first, he said it was a lark, a way to perhaps capitalize on the school's haunted history. But the joke ended up being on Nesbitt. It was supposed to be a funny thing, he told the Asheville Citizen-Times in 2016, and then we really experienced it. Nesbitt relates the story that while taping the video, he set up his camera in the coach's office, which overlooks the concession stand. When he turned out the lights, he was shocked to see a white blob hovering in the middle of the room before it began floating across from wall to wall. The Nesbitt recounts he heard a whistling or humming sound before the white blob seemed to morph into the image of a floating head. I know it sounds crazy, Nesbitt said, but we could not have any explanation for it. Of course, one explanation might be that enterprising kids were trying to pull one over on the adults and students at the school. There are also reports of classroom clocks all stopping at a certain hour and the discovery of clumps of dirt in areas where no student was allowed. But other stories seem to extend way beyond the idea of a good-natured prank. In the 2003 book Haunted Schools by A.S. Mott, one former Erwin janitor went on the record with his chilling experience. While cleaning up a classroom one night, the custodian could hear someone coughing down the hall. Not just coughing, hacking, as if afflicted by a terrible respiratory disease. The kind of cough, he said, that someone with lung cancer might have. As he was going to the door of the class to check out the coughing, the door slammed shut and locked. Confused, as he tried to open the door, the janitor heard another person coughing behind him, and then the sound of a third person coughing. When the lights went out, the janitor turned cold. Taking out his lighter, he flicked a flame to reveal 3 hideous, rotting faces, frothing at their mouth with blood. Suddenly, the lights went back on and the door unlocked, and the faces were gone. I opened the door and ran like hell, he is quoted as saying. Today, the place where the exhumed country home cemetery residents rest has also become overgrown and abandoned, and waiting, perhaps, for the march of progress to bring around the shovels again and disturb their eternal rest. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.